Whether they're trying to get their hands on some valuables or just doing it for the sheer thrill, heisters and ne'er-do-wells make it their life's work to break into the unbreakable, bypass the unbypassable, and as far as the impenetrable, well, let's just say they do all right. The risks are high, but the rewards are even bigger. And the more challenging a place is to break into, the higher the impact becomes. So, today we're giving you all the valuable information about the most famous break-ins in history. But before we steal you away, why don't you take a swipe at that subscribe button? Then let us know in the comments below what other criminals you want to hear about. For now, lock your doors and bar your windows. It's history time. In what sounds like something out of a George Clooney movie or three, a group of highly skilled thieves spent months planning and executing the heftiest bank heist in the history of Brazil. A few dozen criminals set up a fake gardening business down the street from Brazil's central bank in Fortaleza. They even purchased a van and came up with a fake company logo, because every good heist needs a graphic designer. The pseudo-landscapers then dug an underground tunnel that stretched from their setup to the bank's secured vault. The tunnel had everything: electric lights, a ventilation system, and plastic and wood bracing. On Saturday, August 6, 2005, the perps were able to steal over $160 million out of the vault. 2 days went by before anyone even noticed the theft, but by then, the money and the thieves were long gone. And in the 20 years since the heist, 8 people have been taken into custody, with only $20 million of the missing dough retrieved. In 1836, the Bank of England on London's adorably named Threadneedle Street received a strange note from an anonymous source. The note explained that their impenetrable vault that held the bank's supply of gold wasn't so impenetrable after all. The bank officials had a good laugh at that. However, the laughter stopped when a second note offering to meet them inside the vault was received by bank officials. And to everyone's surprise, a man popped up from underneath the floorboards. Sort of a reverse Shawshank. Turns out a sewage worker discovered an old pipe that led right to the vault. After allegedly awarding this good Samaritan with £800, the Bank of England quickly repaired the breach, and all was well. While most 15-year-olds in 1999 were out seeing The Matrix for the 87th time, Miami teen Jonathan James was sniffing around the web for some backdoors. That's a hacking term, Mr. Anderson. Using a network analysis tool, James was able to unlock hundreds of messages, usernames, and passwords from an unsuspecting target. Oh, did we mention that the hacked server belonged to NASA? And James didn't just take a peek and duck back into the shadows. He compromised the Department of Defense networks, accessed several staff computers at the Marshall Space Flight Center, and ended up downloading some NASA proprietary software worth a whopping $1.7 million. As a result, NASA had to shut down its system for 3 straight weeks, while James became the first juvenile to receive a federal sentence for computer hacking. When asked for a reason, James said he simply wanted to see how far he could go, while taking a few jabs at NASA's lackluster security practices in the process. Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum houses many of the world's most prized and treasured works of art, making it a prime target for a clever enough thief. As luck would have it, these kinds of thieves showed up at the museum on the evening of March 18, 1990, dressed as police officers, and told security guards they were responding to a disturbance call. The guards broke protocol and allowed the counterfeit cops through the employee entrance. And for their trust, the guards were awarded with handcuffs, ropes, and gags. 81 minutes later, the thieves exited through the gift shop, toting 13 works of art, including pieces from Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Degas. The entire haul, totaling $500 million, has never been recovered to this day. The museum still offers a $10 million award for anyone who provides information that leads to its recovery. Statistically speaking, one of you just panicked. The only thing scarier than the words Russian Doomsday nuclear plane, adding the words unauthorized access. And that's precisely what happened at Russia's PJSC Beryeva Aircraft Company. The complex housed an Ilyushin Il-80 plane, an airborne command center designed to carry Russia's top guys to safety if a nuclear strike were ever to occur. They call it the Doomsday plane, which sounds like something the Fantastic Four would be called in to deal with. Despite the high stakes and top secrecy of the aircraft, officials were baffled when it was targeted for theft in 2020, after inspectors noticed close to 40 pieces of radio equipment missing from the cargo hatch. Russia's top brass had been stingy with the details of how such a colossal blunder was able to take place under its ever-watchful eye, let alone who was involved or what the investigation turned up. So, it's our responsibility to assume it was the work of tiny ghosts. Some intruders break into a place for valuables. Others do it just to chat. That's what happened in the summer of 1982, when an intoxicated man named Michael Fagan dealt a serious blow to the Buckingham Palace security force's reputation. After a night at the pub in the early morning of July 9th, Fagan found an unlocked window on the roof and used it to stage his own tour of the Queen's residence. He took his time admiring the portraits on the walls, King George V's stamp collection, and Prince Charles's wine storage, downing half a bottle of white in the process. Eventually, Fagan ended up in the Queen's bedroom, and Elizabeth was none too happy to see him. According to his first-hand account, the Queen excused herself and ran out of the room. The intruder was eventually detained, and during the investigation, he dropped the bomb that he had actually broken into Buckingham Palace several weeks earlier without detection. This gave him the confidence to pull off the early morning B&E for which he now found himself in custody. If you want to watch this all play out yourself, check out Season 4 of The Crown, where the incident is recreated in the episode Fagan. In 1911, the Louvre Museum in Paris was undergoing a project where the art on display would be moved to the roof to be photographed before being returned. 3 Italian handymen working in the museum decided this was the perfect opportunity to snatch one of the most famous pieces of art ever made. The trio spent the night in an art supply closet, only sneaking out in the wee hours of the morning to lift the Mona Lisa off the wall before walking out the front door. Because of the ongoing photography project, nobody even noticed the painting was gone for over a day. After realizing Ms. Mona was not coming back, an international effort was kicked off to retrieve the priceless work of art, making it a household name in the process. 2 years later, the painting thief Vincenzo Perugia attempted to sell the painting to an art dealer in Florence. The police were on him before he could say Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci. After being taken into custody, Perugia said that he wished to return the painting to its home country for the first time since Napoleon Bonaparte stole it. Yeah, that's definitely the reason why. Not the huge heaps of money. Back in 2013, the world watched in anticipation as the Catholic Church's College of Cardinals met to select a new pope. But while the rest of us were forced to watch chimney smoke on the TV, one imposter got himself a front row seat at the Vatican. A German guy named Ralph Napierski popped on a black fedora, a purple scarf, and a cassock tailored for a much smaller man of God, and strolled right past the Swiss guard manning the door. Once inside, Napierski posed as a real bishop, making it as far as the Vatican's main square, snapping pictures with actual bishops. But when somebody noticed his outfit wasn't quite right, the jig was up. Should have sprung for a more expensive costume. Napierski claimed he belonged to the Italian Orthodox Church, a church famous for, not existing, and still maintains he is a bishop to this day, claiming he infiltrated the Vatican to protest the Catholic Church's child abuse scandals. Robert Latta is notable for being one of the only people to use the old "I'm with a band" line and have it actually work, on a presidential scale no less. In 1985, mere hours before President Ronald Reagan was set to take his second oath of office, Latta was able to sneak past security and enter the president's state dining room. Despite not having credentials, a uniform, nor an instrument, Latta sauntered into the White House by following the United States Marine Band. In a classic 1-2 switcheroo, the band thought he was with the White House staff, and the White House staff thought he was with the band. The perfect crime? Latta, a Denver native in town for the inauguration, was only able to wander around the residence of the president for about 15 minutes before being detained. Luckily, that was the last time some random person snuck into the White House. However, it wasn't the last time any reality stars snuck in. Real Housewives of D.C. stars Tariq and Mikhail Salahi managed to sneak their way into a high-security state dinner. This was during a soiree the Obama administration was throwing in the White House East Room, a party the Salahis were not invited to. Still, they made it past multiple Secret Service agents without having their names checked, eventually making their way into the ritzy reception. After shaking hands with President Barack Obama and Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, they proceeded to the South Lawn and snapped a few pictures with Vice President Joe Biden before sneaking out completely undetected. While the Salahis faced no consequences for their publicity stunt, we have to imagine the Secret Service had a few HR meetings. The 17th century English Civil War was an all-out brawl between those who supported Oliver Cromwell and those who liked the way the proverbial crown fit. In the middle of all this chaos was an Irishman named Colonel Thomas Blood. Blood was a flip-flopper, pledging allegiance to whichever side seemed to have the upper hand at the time, eventually landing his loyalties on Cromwell. But all the while, Blood was scheming, hatching a plot to steal the crown jewels from the Tower of London's barricaded basement. Posing as a parson, Blood became friendly with Talbot Edwards, master of the jewel house. This kinship allowed Blood to eventually gain access to the basement, where he used a mallet to smash St. Edward's crown like Gallagher's watermelon. Blood then grabbed the sovereign's orb and stuffed it down his pants, presumably pausing to make cheeky jokes, before cutting the scepter of the cross in two for easier transport. Blood didn't have much time to celebrate his plundering, as he and his accomplices were swiftly apprehended by guards. King Charles II ended up being amused by the whole thing and gave Blood a full pardon. The sovereign's orb was returned, hopefully after being cleaned. No, we're not talking about the time Johnny Cash recorded an album there. Marvin Lane Usery once spent time as a prison guard at Folsom Prison in California. We can't imagine it's the kind of place anyone would want to go back to, let alone sneak in. But that's precisely what Usery was doing in 2011. When guards, using thermal imaging equipment, discovered Usery hiding in the tall grass behind the facility. When questioned, his excuse was that he was feeling nostalgic. In reality, authorities believed that was all a load of baloney and figured he was more likely trying to smuggle in contraband. Whatever his true intentions, he ended up with a felony charge for the break-in, and he didn't even get a song out of it. So what do you think? Which of these harrowing heists was the most impressive? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some more videos from our weird history.